It's coming through the speakers today.
All right, good. Let's get the mic on. All right, Dan, I'm gonna let you give us an update on 126, 124. There's no, yes. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, the mic's for. You want to take this? Okay. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to. This is yours. Take this one. Sorry.
All right, good.
It's good.
Right. Since there's no public present, I don't have to announce, we're gonna change. Cindy, we're gonna do 124, 126 before we do the planning department presentations. So, actually, yes. Just a quick question. Anybody have any question on meeting minutes from the last meeting?
No, they look good.
All right, I'm gonna make a
This is-
Actually, Antonio, I'll give you a second.
Sorry, this is for the July 24th?
No, for the September.
Oh.
Yep.
September 25th.
Gotcha.
Okay. Zoning board meeting.
Yep, gotcha.
All right. There might have been references back to,
Yeah, it looks like they were.
right,
yeah,
because we approved those minutes.
Gotcha.
You have any issues with
Nope.
the minutes? Okay. Make a motion that we approve the September 25th, 2025 minutes. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Cindy, do we have any other housekeeping issues we have to address before we go into applications? Okay. I'm gonna open the floor to Dan Grossi. He's gonna give us an update on 124, 126. Alexia is still continuing recusing herself. So it'll just be Dan, Antonio, and myself. Go ahead, Dan.
Do you need to overview the variances again, or it's okay just to jump right into where we
I-
left off?
Does anybody want to hear the variant? I mean, it's pretty straightforward, right?
Yeah, I think we remember the
Yeah,
variance.
pretty certain everything. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So I guess to explain a little before where we kind of left off last time. There was a couple of open questions about this application. Kind of about the first one, just kind of being principally how this is in front of the zoning board and kind of what led to this point. And then other questions regarding the actual code about the apartment sizes and when it was established, and also some of the planning board jurisdiction, given that a CEU was kind of issued with this property in the past. So I guess beginning with the reason for being before the zoning board tonight. So the past several meetings, I gave you all a copy of a letter that was basically an agreement that was established between the applicants, the property owners, ourselves, and the village attorneys, highlighting and listing points that had to be satisfied in order for a CO to be issued on the property.
And Dan, this is the April 18th, 2024 letter you're referring
Yes,
to?
yeah, let me, copy of it up. Yes, it's April 18th, 2024 was actually the updated version. So the original one was sent on January 30th, 2024.
Okay.
So you'll note, throughout that letter, it has a bunch of points about different items that had to be addressed. The most important one of being that very first item, which we talked a little bit about last time, talking about that between the 1990 plans that we have on file and the current plans in front of the board tonight, that there's been some changes to the building itself. Most importantly, that where it used to be a ground floor with 2 apartments and the first story with 2 retail spaces in the front and 2 apartments behind it, there's now been a relocation of one of those first story apartments to a top floor, which used to be an attic. So there's now apartment above. And the first story apartment, which was 2, is now 1 larger apartment. So there were some changes to the amount of apartments. I'm sorry, not the amount, the location of the apartments. The actual number of units, though, has remained unchanged. There's actually no, Parker and I actually were going through a little before about the potential zoning implications. And there's actually no increase in parking. There's actually potentially a decrease here because the retail spaces have also been shrunk a little bit to allow for larger apartments. And the parking calculations for apartments are more based on the number of units and beds, not so much the square footage of the apartment. But again, regarding that CEU, right, so the way it reads, I don't know if we're able to pull it up, but basically it describes exactly where in the building the apartments were located and the retail spaces were located. Now, some of it's still accurate, obviously, because now 1 apartment has been relocated above, and there's only one larger apartment behind the 2 retail spaces, it doesn't match what's currently, approved for the project site.
Dan, say that one more time, please.
Yeah, so if you look up there, right now it says the approved use is 2 apartments on the rear ground level and and 2 retail stores and 2 apartments behind on the front ground level, which it's a little confusing. One of them, the ground level they're referring to is one facing the parking lot, whereas it says the front ground, that's actually the first story, and that faces the East Main Street frontage. So it says there's 2 apartments below and there's 2 apartments above. Now since, based on the current plans, that's been changed so that the first story where there was 2 apartments now only has 1 large apartment, and there's now a new apartment, or a relocated apartment above it in what used to be an attic space.
So we have apartments still have 4 apartments, but they're on, instead of being on 2 levels, front ground level and rear ground level, now we have 1 above the retail space, 1 on the retail space, and 2 below the retail space.
Exactly.
Okay. I just wanna
Yes,
make sure.
yeah, it's tricky to describe, but, so now basically 3 stories of apartments and the 1 story of retail.
No, that's okay. Thank you, Parker.
Yeah. And beyond this, so too, right, the building inspector also had the determination about the level of renovation that's gone into the building between the windows, I guess facade changes, other work that was on the interior. He said it, under the state code, it was a type 3 renovation, which based on the code requires them to meet modern day codes and compliancy. And based on, obviously, why it's in front of the board tonight, based on the renovations, the 4 areas have changed slightly for these spaces since 1990, and they are currently found to meet the code.
Okay. So out of the 4 apartments, we have 1 apartment that's under code requirement of 400 square feet,
Yes,
and we still have the 2 retail spaces that are under 800 square feet each.
yes.
Okay. I'm sorry, one last thing, Dan.
Yeah.
The applicant had issues with their adjacent neighbor, Danford's. Now, when he was here last time, or when Amy was here last time, she indicated that they had relocated the fence back onto their property. Are there any other, I thought there was an issue with an air conditioning system, but am I wrong in saying that? Or am I mixing it up with another? Have they resolved all their issues with Danford's as far as having any conflicts with them?
Yes.
Okay.
I remember I think we had a sign off, right, last in the file, or I think we had some email or correspondence that they were gonna submit, for the record, basically indicating that thanking them for now resolving the fence issue, and staff has been there as well, and
All right, but do we have that, because Danford's did show up at the first hearing.
yeah.
Indicated there were conflicts. Have we received anything in writing, or has staff gone and verified that all those conflicts have been resolved?
Yes. So
Okay.
we've gone and verified, and I know I was forwarded the email.
Okay.
Which, I don't know if we made it into the record, so I'll make sure that gets in the
Okay,
record.
but you're for the record, you're stating that someone from staff has reviewed the site, and we've received some correspondence confirming that, plus or minus.
Yes.
Okay. Dan, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sure, 2 questions. First, the undersized apartment that's on the application, is that one of the apartments that changed location, or is that in its original location?
So that's in its original location. The only change to that apartment was that they added a laundry room, so it got reconfigured a little bit.
Got
But it is still in the same location.
What type of room?
Laundry. They've added laundry into the,
And you mentioned that when they did the work on the floor level, the retail space level, right, to change the apartment, that it's like reduced the size of the retail space, right? Do we have any idea about how much that's the size of the retail space was reduced?
we don't, unfortunately. The problem is the original plans from 90s didn't have square footages. We could visualize it. I mean, it looks, it's,
Yes, maybe I'll ask this question. By reducing the size of the retail space, they didn't reduce the size of the retail space, would it still be in front of us for a second? So,
I don't, it's not, if you look at it's not a substantial area.
So I
Yeah.
think you do believe. So what Mark is asking is if they had not reduced the size of the retail space to accommodate the changes to the apartment on that level, would they still need a variance?
Oh.
And the answer is yes, right? Because
Sorry, but, well, yeah, but,
they're so substantially, like, they're so far undersized,
Yeah.
yeah. A few square feet wouldn't make a difference
Okay,
here
so
or
it wasn't 500 or 600 square feet, it was just a couple hundred square.
Yeah, it wasn't-
Maybe less than 100 square feet, we'll just say that for the record.
well, I think more than 100 square feet, but I think less than 400, like the four.
Okay,
a couple
all
hundred
right,
they
perfect,
need.
that's.
I would say though, it would probably, if it didn't remained unchanged, right, this is what we thought was under the CEU, so,
Okay.
it wouldn't have required a variance, it would have been considered pre-existing
Right.
from the
right.
CEU, but because it's
Right.
been changed,
Yeah.
it's now back before the board.
And it did increase the degree of nonconformity.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great.
I will just add too, I know there's a comment last time about when that code was established.
That's right.
So, where's the date? It's March 8th, 1979 was when they established the minimum apartment sizes for the C1.
And the CEU,
And the C1 and C2.
and the CEU was from the 90s,
Yes.
based on affidavits sworn to about that continued existing use, right?
Yes.
Right, so the CEU was issued in the 90s, and then since changes were made in the configuration of the apartments to move one apartment to the third floor and decrease the size of the retail space.
For something that was already subpar according to the 1970s.
Increase the amount of deconformity, I think. Oh,
It increased,
non-conforming.
it increased the nonconformity,
Yes.
decreased the space, yes.
Of which the CEU recognized that,
Right,
even though it was silent on the square footages.
right.
Right.
Yeah.
Dan, let me ask you this question. The issue of apartment buildings came up. Would this be what's the definition of an apartment building in the village? Or,
So there's a little tricky. There's two. I don't have the definitions in front of me. We can actually pull them up, but there's mixed. I have the code right here. It's mixed. I want to say it's mixed dwelling or it's mixed use. I believe is how they describe it in this district. The mixed occupancies and freestanding apartments are two terms the C1 district talk about. That's the percentage that applies here. This is technically considered mixed occupancy because there are those two retail spaces and the apartments. So you'll notice there's provisions in here that specifically apply to freestanding apartments, which those no longer apply to this building because they're this is a mixed occupancy. So
okay, so it's not an apartment building because it's mixed occupant. It's
Exactly.
retail and living space together, apartments together, okay. So then then planning's not involved in this at all, or shouldn't be. Good, so permitted use, okay.
well, it's actually conditional use.
Conditional use.
Yeah, and that's one of the questions we were discussing internally a lot and trying to bring forward about the board, about planning board. We seem to indicate that it might be required for something of this nature because primarily the location of the apartments have changed, but then also it's been renovated and changed. I don't think it necessarily needs another conditional use hearing, and there's actually exemptions under 250-18F4 and then D. So it's on the last page of what I handed to you all. But it describes new apartments.
New apartments.
And
okay.
it describes it should not include renovated or converted space in existing building where the proposed renovation does not increase the total square footage of the building, which this doesn't do.
Depends on, all right.
What is the square footage of the apartment on the first floor where the retail space is?
It's right on the plan, so they have it.
I ask because I guess if they had not increased the size of the apartment space and reduced the size of the retail space, would the apartment be conforming?
So well, if you look at the size there, it's
894?
yeah, and
And-
technically you only need 400 square feet
Yep.
for the code.
Yep,
So
okay, so then, okay.
there would be options too. Yeah, would be options too.
So Dan, what you're saying is that if you increased the first apartment by roughly 500 square feet,
I guess
the
what
first retail space, no,
Yeah.
but you'd still be, but if you increased it by 500 square feet, then you'd be under 400 for one of the apartments.
what I was thinking through in my head is like, okay, it's not preferred that they reduced or increased the degree of nonconformity for the retail space, but I think it would be more acceptable if they did that in order to make the apartment itself conform to the proper size according to the code, but that's not the case.
Right.
Let me see. You're asking if they did that, yeah.
You're in a commercial district. You're in a commercial district. And you have more residential use in that building
Then you do
than you
commercial.
do commercial,
Significantly more.
but existing. It's not new.
Well, that's the thing, you have a CEU right now.
It is.
You have a CEU back, sorry, throw that CEU up, Parker. CEU back from 1990
And the law
for
changed in the
those two.
seventies.
Right. And, you know,
That's it.
yeah, I just. But is that CEU, the question you have is, all right, so let's go this way, and I'm not advocating one way or another, but that CEU says two on the first floor, two on the ground, lower level.
Okay,
Now you've changed everything significantly. Now you have one on the top floor, one on the middle floor, and then two on the bottom floor. Because they put one in the
Right.
attic, so.
good.
So do you look at it as, well, it says 4 apartments, or do you say, well, that CEU is kinda out the window? Which I don't know that I say that, but you could make that argument.
In part, potentially.
I think that gives more kick to the building inspector than anything. So,
I'm not allowed to give an opinion, but I can give fact according to town council. And just so you know, the apartment that is located above the retail space has been like that for at least 20 years. That was not created by this applicant, just so you know. It is not part of, when you're discussing the alterations that took place to the building, the creation of that apartment was not part of the alterations that this applicant made that was in existence prior to. I was the broker of record on this deal, and I was also the manager of this property, of the previous owners, that owned the building for 50-something years. And they were the ones that made that alteration because they actually occupied it themselves for almost 20 years.
After the
Yes. While they occupied the building when the CEU was issued, they made alterations. They eventually occupied that, what would be considered from East Main Street, the second level, from rear of the building to third level.
What triggered this entire changes that the applicant made? Was it really more so the changes that were seen?
The applicant made alterations to the building to update it based on its condition because it had run into extreme disrepair and in some areas was deemed not habitable on the lower levels due to water damage. So he made the renovations of that property and I guess did not contact the village prior to making those renovations because he thought that he was not doing significant alterations, but it came about that the building inspector determined that he was making significant alterations.
That's what they observe from the outside. I can't speak to what they saw inside, but I can tell you that to staff and Jim Burke, who's the village attorney for the CBI, indicated that they did some window work, so they immediately triggered
So I hate to get to hypotheticals, but if the current applicant had not made any of those changes, would we still be looking at this because the actual floor plans have changed prior to probably as
something that is not, it's there today, right?
Now you just heard the statement. Fact.
Yeah, but it happened after the CIO. If someone did something that needed CO and it changes, this all, you know, so.
But it's,
Well, I'm just, you're thinking it, right?
but its use predicated on dimensions, size, it's the use.
You're saying that the layout doesn't matter as much as just the square footage to retail versus.
Not even square footage, what is the use that is continuing structure? It's not like restaurant.
So you're saying the uses remain the same regardless of the dimensions and the layout?
Yeah, let's see, you probably would have said 2 retail spaces at $299, $447, and apartments at whatever it wanted, but it was probably what the was.
Right.
They said, well, they have a CU for undersized retail and for, one undersized apartment.
Specificity.
Yes, if the current CU we had now said 2 retail spaces, $299, $447, 4 apartments, that's the dimensions.
Which is probably what you would get to in today's standard of furniture.
Yes. That was issued years ago, so that's why we exist. If they have any questions or comments regarding this application. Now, this applicant has a number of items that he's got to resolve, which really has no effect on this board, it's up to the building department. Why we, see, even if we order a variance, he doesn't necessarily get it, it's right away, it satisfies the building department.
Right. And so these retail spaces, although they were larger when the CE was issued, we don't know how much larger they were. However, they've been this size for quite some time, right? It's because these changes to move the apartment to the 3rd floor, right? So these retail spaces have been this size for years.
A little hard to read.
We can zoom in on the right-hand side corner. It shows the retail space. Slide up.
That was all retail. Oh.
So those apartments must have been ridiculously small.
Parker, is there anything on there that indicates what the size of the retail store on the right was prior to the alteration?
Yep.
Yeah, I just don't disagree with that.
Which is the purpose of a CEU, to continue your existing use.
Right.
I don't know if this means anything, but I will say for, not just for general, but before about the dimensions and use, I will say a lot of the times, not as much with residential, because I always think of parking calculations for, site plan stuff, and not as much, so much for residential where they count the size of it as impacting your parking, it's more the number of units who might be living there. For anything commercial, the size of your space very much allocates the, the intensity of it, well, it's the same with residential, right? The intensity, the more you have, the more intense it is. But commercial is really dictated by the square footage of the space. So again, this actually does reduce the parking calculation from what we determined. So, because the retail's been shrunk, and the apartments haven't changed the number of bedrooms, so, but it does show a bit of a change between the percent of the space allocated to each use, if that makes sense.
So, we issue CEUs, right? Without any other departmental, right? We have that authority.
No, we don't issue CEUs, we issue
Oh, that's-
variances.
That-
This board does not issue CEUs.
Okay, so the
We
CEO.
only issue, CEU is issued by the building department and the planning department. Well, that's really just the building department.
And we don't issue certificates of zoning. Some jurisdictions. do.
All we do is issue variance, a determination on a variance request.
Or use.
Or use. Yes.
I'm sorry, Cindy. Hold on.
So if somebody comes in for a CEU application for a commercial building, it goes to his own board application. If they come in for a CEU for a residential application, that goes to the building inspector. It's two separate applications.
Right, but this board, the zoning board of appeals, does not issue a CEU.
No,
So we confirm
but you
that.
have the authority to approve them.
Okay.
Or reuse. CEU.
Any more discussion on this one? Any more
Well, the
thoughts?
question is, can we modify?
A CEU?
Can we modify an existing CEU?
Well, what are we modifying on the CEU?
Oh, potentially the,
Because anything on that CEU is accurate. It lists 2 retail apartments and 2 retail spaces and 4 apartments.
the CEU is based on the 1990 plans. The 1990 plans do not have the apartment in the 3rd story.
So what do we get by updating the CEU versus just approving the variances?
And you're gonna lock down the dimensions of exactly what's in
but-
there today.
But again, what we can do is and Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, we can put a condition. Let me back this up. Dan, if the board approves these variances tonight and the applicant meets all the building requirements and does everything that he's supposed to do, what will he be issued, a CEU?
Yes.
So then,
Or CEO.
all right,
It gets tricky.
he'll be issued a certificate of either use or, so what we can do is put a condition on here that if the variances are approved, that the location
It's
and
CO.
the square footages could be designated on the,
Certificate of existing use documents that the building isn't conforming and has been in existence in its condition for an extended period of time based on affidavits.
sorry.
A CEU indicates an existing use based on affidavits or documentation that upholds that the existing condition of the building represents how it has been used for an extended period of time. This is going to alter that. The building department will issue a certificate of occupancy as the building exists now because it's not based on affidavit of recognition of people familiar with the building.
Yes, yes, but.
Sorry.
But, hold on. Antonio's point, to speak to Antonio's point, is that when we issue the CO, certificate of occupancy, we we could spell out a little more clearly.
When the building department issues the
Sorry,
C of O, it will
apologize.
be more specific, and when you issue, if you choose to issue variances, it will stipulate the requirements that you want met in order for those variances to be granted for the building department to issue the C of O.
And the floor plan with the,
Well, the
this
updated
floor plan, with
yeah,
with the
will
square
be on
footage
file,
will be
right?
on file,
Correct.
so, the next time this happens.
So, but, yeah, so I guess the whole purpose though behind putting it on the CO would be if the whole world fell off the face of the earth and the only piece left of paper is this CO, you could at least say, which we know is, but because they didn't do that prior to this, we're in this situation now.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
so we could make that a condition if the board so felt. Are there any other questions or comments on this application?
I want to know if we can modify the existing CEU, and then the additional third level can seek its own certificate of occupancy. Outside and
But why would you-
independent.
But yeah, but to modify the existing CEU, you're modifying, there's,
It's
Nah,
changed since then. Yeah, I
yeah.
don't.
I think there's too much change to do that. I think, between the size of the retail, and the problem is that you're changing something that doesn't have any specificity other than 4 apartments and 2 retail. So I think by issuing a CO that's updated, if the building department issues a CO that's updated, it would have the specificity that you're looking for. But again, we don't issue the CO, that would be up to the building department.
Okay,
Their permit would need to clearly state what the application is for what they, and what the CO, what they're looking for the CO to read. And so that would all be
Correct.
in there,
Yes,
in their application.
correct.
Okay, now I'm gonna flip it back. I don't understand why we're here.
Because you have two, at a minimum, you have two retail spaces that are below the 800, and you have 1 apartment that's below the 400.
At our existing use.
Yeah, but,
Yeah,
The dimensions have changed.
yeah, I mean, the layout's changed, so
and by the fact that he's here, he's got to, he's admitting whether he changed it or it was changed prior to him buying it, it's still changed. So he has to, and because he made,
But is use about change, or is it about use? Can you look to the changes, whether they be dimensions or location and orientation, within the use itself? So if
I don't
that were
understand your
to
question.
apply, right? Because if we have an existing use, that's it. It need not be any further inquiry into did it change orientations? Did you take a piece of one apartment to the other, right? Because the use.
but we did do those.
and but also with that line of thinking, you could then create an apartment that's 50 square feet, like a closet, and shove some. So obviously you can't do that, right? I mean, alterations or changes to what was approved under the CEU would then trigger a review like we're
Right,
here for
but-
today, right?
But let's just back up for a second. Although I understand your point, I think you're going down a rabbit hole that isn't the jurisdiction of this board. As far as CEUs and stuff, things being changed and being modified is really the planning department and the building department. Our determination as a board is that there's an application in front of us that was vetted by our planning and purchasing, and building department, I apologize. And they determined that the best course of action would be to issue variances to cover things that weren't specified, whether under the CEU or not. Now, we also have plans that say the building's been modified from obviously, we just saw that 1 retail space was the back room was taken off to add to an apartment. So why it occurred, and although it's germane to this application, I think we're getting into whether we can modify CEUs and stuff is really not the board, not under the jurisdiction of this board. So, not to cut you short, but I think we got to back up a little bit, and we're pinpointing too much, being too specific.
Sure.
The CEU is based on the 1990 plans.
Correct.
Yes.
Was there an apartment on the third floor in the 1990 plans?
As we heard,
No, all we need to do is look at the 1990 plans. We don't need to hear. Is there an apartment on the 1990 plans on the third floor? No.
No.
Okay.
No.
well, that's why we're here now, because they modified those plans, and now
I think you're getting too far down the rabbit hole of expanding the modification
I don't understand what you mean by expanding the modification.
because you're now looking to the changes of,
Which required a permit. Right.
So they were summoned, and now they're here. Permit variances associated with that.
Because there were changes made to this property without permits. And when the building inspector recently went in and said, hey, you're doing something that requires a permit, and when he went in, they said, okay, we'll get a permit. When they submitted the plans, it was discovered that,
but the use hasn't changed.
right, no one's arguing. No one's arguing
So
that.
why are we here?
I just want to add one really quick.
On the apartments.
So yes, yeah, for the changes, but I want to just talk about the use really quick. And so, I mean, I have the site plan code. I handed it to the 25010, and D specifically mentions the expansion of change of any use in an existing building other than the expansion of a one-family detached residence or building there too. It includes exceptions about changes from permitted use to permitted use. This is for planning board review, right? But again, it does mention of change of any use in the existing building, because the uses can be allocated by the space that they come up with. That's how it's usually regulated. So
Like a restaurant on the third floor. would
yeah,
require-
or an expansion of a restaurant on the third floor, where now if it's only taking up half of it, now it takes up the full thing. That would typically trigger site plan building. That would trigger and zoning if
They have to go
necessary.
hand in hand.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else?
He has the use, he may not have the occupancy. There's two separate things. He has the use, but he may not have the occupancy. Because it doesn't comport with the standards. When it's considered habitable, what is required to be deemed a livable and.
Right, but the village has a code that says habitable apartment within the village of Port Jefferson is 400 square feet. They have one apartment that's 318 square feet. They're asking for a variance on that. The other apartments, and Dan, correct anything I'm saying if it's wrong, the other apartments all meet the 400 square foot minimum requirement. They also have two retail spaces that are under 800, which the village requires as the minimum. So,
Well, they changed the walls and they had the laundry room in the. If you go to the two plans,
the
they
bottom line
altered.
is they've modified the building, so it's automatically creating a clean palette. They've proven that the use has not intensified. They had 4 apartments before, they have 4 apartments now. Whether they're on the first floor, second floor, third floor, we've determined with the new set of plans, and they're saying that one of the retail spaces was over 800 square feet. They reduced it to make one of the apartments bigger. So I'm not sure what argument what you're making, but, I'm trying to simplify the application. You made some valid points, but I think we have to,
And I think going back to your previous about how, yes, they did actually change for the apartment in question, the 318 square foot apartment, they did add the laundry room, right? But I think we were able to like see on the 1990s plans that even if you were to take that laundry room back out, it would still not meet the 400 square foot requirement. It was not conforming to begin with. So again, like by adding that laundry room, all you've really done is just increased the degree of nonconformity again. So none of these things were conforming to begin with,
Yes.
but the nonconformity has been increased.
The problem was is that there was never, because there's a new application here, essentially, when they discovered work was being done, there was never variances for these items ahead of time, so we're sort of housekeeping, we're catching up to things.
That's kind of how I look at this, yeah.
Yeah, we're catching up to things. They didn't, so.
Okay.
And I don't think the recent construction increased the degree of non-conform. I think it was existing like that, other than changing windows and stuff like that. I don't think they, it increased the degree of non.
Right,
this most
like the
recent
floor
construction.
plan didn't change with
Yes.
these most recent alterations, right?
Yes, it did. You just said that they added a laundry room.
That was, I think, previous to that, after 1990, but
Yeah. Because we just heard a statement of fact from Alexia stating that those alterations were made after the 1990, but prior to this.
okay.
Tony, do you have anything else you'd like to discuss? Or you have any other questions? Does anyone on the board have any other questions?
No, none from me.
So how many apartments under the square footage? All of them?
One.
Just one?
Just one, yep.
Just one.
How many retail spaces are under?
Two. Both
Two- two out of two.
Both retail spaces, which are the only two retail spaces. And they front on East Main Street. And are currently occupied.
And is the function of the zoning is commercial?
Commercial zone, yeah.
So there's a total of how many variances?
Three.
Both a variance for the 800 square foot apartment, retail number one, of 299 where 800 is required. Retail number two, 447 where 800 is required. And the variance of 318 where 480. Do you have the staff report for this?
Yes, I have the-
Can I get a copy of that? Just a quick second, I need I'm getting old, I can't remember. If nobody has any questions or comments on this, does everyone feel like they could vote on this at the moment?
Yes.
All right, let's talk about the two retail spaces, and I'm just going to walk through the criteria real quick. One second, I don't have my cheat sheet on me. All right, so first, whether an undesirable change by the producer of the character of the neighborhood or detriment to the nearby properties. Since the quantity and essential use of the property hasn't changed, I don't see that there's gonna be, there's really, nothing's changing to the property,
I agree.
okay? Whether benefit could be sought by the applicant can be achieved by some other method, I think we've determined that, unless we eliminate, if, even with the reconfiguration, we're not gonna be able to gain the necessary square footage. There is still gonna be a variance of some sort, one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
Whether the variance is substantial. Just talking on the retail spaces only. You can make the argument that they're anywhere between 30 and 50, 30 and 50.
Yeah, over 50%, yeah.
So we will say that they're substantial. Whether proposed will have any adverse impact on the physical environmental conditions in the neighborhood? No, they're existing and there hasn't been to this date, and the use is commercial, and they're currently in line with the commercial district. And whether the alleged difficulty was self-created. I could say that, in my opinion, unless you disagree, it was self-created because he doesn't need the four, if he got rid of an apartment, he could theoretically, eliminate some problems, but.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was self-created, maybe not by the applicant, but.
Right.
Yeah.
It could have been by previous, but
Right.
you buy the property as is, so
Right.
you assume the problems. Go ahead.
How big is the attic apartment?
504 or 509.
So that one meets the minimum requirements.
Yep.
The apartment in question is on the, and Dan, correct me, that's the one that's on the East Main Street ground level, or is it the basement apartment?
Below.
All
So
right.
that's
So it's
the-
one of the two basement apartments is a studio, okay.
So you want to go through the criteria for the apartment?
Well, I'm gonna,
Oh, you want to vote on the?
let's vote on the two
sure.
variances, then we'll go through the.
Sounds good.
All right, I'm gonna make a motion that the board approve variance number 1 for an existing retail space of 299 square feet, where a minimum of 800 square feet is required. I'll make a motion to approve it. Do I have a second on that?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Variance number 2, make a motion that we approve an existing retail space of 447 square feet where required minimum space is 800 square feet. Make a motion to approve that. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, now the last item we have is the 318 square foot apartment that's in the basement level. Whether the change would produce an undesirable change would be produced to the neighborhood if we allow this. It's already pre-existing. So no, we're not adding an apartment, we're not taking it away. Whether the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some other method feasible to the applicant. I don't, unless we eliminate it or do,
Even
some-
doing that, I don't
yeah,
think it.
Yeah. Whether the requested area variance is substantial, compared to the 2 retail space variances, I wouldn't consider this substantial. Whether the proposed variance has any adverse impacts or physical environment conditions in the neighborhood, I don't believe so. And whether difficulty was self-created, well, they're all self-created, so
Yeah.
yes. That being said, I'm gonna make a motion that we approve the existing 300 square foot apartment where it required minimum of 400.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. That closes this application. All right, that being said, we now have 2 presentations from Dan and Parker. So. You know you're welcome to vote against things.
Of course, of course.
I don't ever want you to feel like.
Keep you here for the rest of your life.
Do the BSI first. Your choice. I'm better looking than the screen, but the screen has more information.
Better looking on the screen. All right.
That's my opinion.
It pretty much is. It's an entire street of undersized businesses.
So, Mr. Chairman, members of the zoning board of appeals, let's take a 40,000-foot view of the village of Port Jefferson and not focus in on substandard apartments right now. Okay. So, as you may know, we are taking a look at our comprehensive plan. Our comprehensive plan is right at the tail end of its vision for 2030. Talking with the mayor, talking with the department, we felt it was, the mayor thought it was a good idea to have some empirical data as we started going into an examination of our comprehensive plan again. So we know that we have vacant storefronts in the Harborfront Commercial Business District and the South Village Commercial Business District, which is up by the train station, and we wanted to get some data on that. Next slide, please. So we did some work. We created some data sheets on an inventory of the vacant storefronts in the village and the vacant buildings in the village. We took a look at Suffolk County, and we put some data together on that. We'll go back into some of this stuff. We also did, by comparison, now that we knew what vacant storefronts we had, we wanted to see why they were difficult to fill. So we took a look at randomly selected 12 commercial business districts in Suffolk County, and we inventoried their storefronts. Not only did we see their vacancy rates, which were much lower than Port Jefferson's, but we also found that there were stores or types of stores that were repetitive in the various different commercial business districts, to the point where we started to call them chains. So we collected all kinds of data. We have individual data on the 12 commercial business districts that we reviewed, and some data countywide. So let's go to the next slide. Okay. So a couple of stats on the analysis of the Village of Port Jefferson. Port Jefferson currently has 38 vacant storefronts between its two commercial business districts. That's roughly 19% vacancy in the village. Okay, when we take a look at the vacancies by district, you can see up in the upper right that the C1 district has got 15 vacancies out of 334 storefronts, which comes out to roughly a 9.4% vacancy for the C1 district, which is the Harborfront Commercial Business District, which is the downtown commercial business district. So we're looking at roughly a 9% vacancy. When we take a look at the C2 Commercial Business District, which is the South Village by the train station, we see that we have 23 vacant storefronts out of, and I don't have my glasses on, I can't see that. What is that, Parker, in the green? 32. Okay, so 23 out of 32 storefronts. That comes out to roughly a 43% vacancy rate for the South Village. So there's some empirical data on what you see when you drive over the railroad tracks. We have a blighted commercial business district by the train station, and as you go down the hill, you come into our Harborfront district, which has more stores filled.
You said there's 23 vacant storefronts out of 32. That's more than a 47. I think it's 32 not vacant. Oh, is it 55? Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I can't read that.
Taking into consideration those 20, are those 20, any of those buildings already planned for development, pending
Right.
starting right now?
So this is a live document. Parker goes out periodically, every other day, and goes out there and double checks our storefronts. So right now, even though they may be under speculation, they are still vacant. Okay. So right now they are a vacant storefront. Okay.
Just go back for 1 second.
Sure.
Your question. The 12 communities that you used as a point of reference and as comparison.
Right.
Are they downtown communities?
Yes.
Or were they?
They're commercial business districts, and we tried to look for ones that were similar to Port Jeff, but, Northport and a couple of them are, but others aren't. So so we tried to find well-defined commercial business districts. No. We were looking for downtowns or commercial business districts. Yes.
Do we know what the volume of those other communities, their occupancy are restaurants versus retail spaces?
Well, we can go back and look at the data and pick out specific fact points if you want, but off the top of my head, I can't say that we have that. Okay.
They have a substantially higher volume of bars and restaurants versus us with our retail spaces, because we tried, I know at one point, we had a moratorium.
Well, the Village of Port Jefferson did have a distance separation for bars and restaurants back in the day. That has been lifted, so that is no longer in the code, but it used to be a separation of 200 feet, I think, or 400, I forget what it was, but there was a separation distance to limit the number of bars and restaurants. That I can't speak to. I don't recall. That's okay. Sure. My next point. So we also used a tool called a business analyst tool. It's a data-driven product that I think Esri puts it out. And Dan, after I go through this slide, Parker and Dan can go back into the tables and give you a little bit more background on the data sets and the sources of our data sets. But we used a thing called the business analyst tool, and we gave the software the limits of our downtown, and it gave us back data on the area. And I'm not going to go into that. I'll let Dan go into that because I can't see that without my glasses. All right. Next slide. So we also took a look at selected commercial business districts around Suffolk County. We tried to empiricalize the information that we saw. We did see that most prevalent business types throughout all the commercial business districts was food and beverage or hospitality type uses. 34% of all the active storefronts in the 12 CBDs that we surveyed fall into the food and beverage category. I'm sorry, 34 in Port Jeff and 24 across the county. So Port Jefferson had a higher percentage of food and beverage uses in our active storefronts, and that obvious conclusion that can be drawn is that restaurants or food and beverages are a very important part of successful CBDs, at least now in this decade. Okay, so you can see the two diagrams, the two pie charts shows the various different percentages of business types within Port Jefferson on the bottom and with throughout Suffolk County on top. And we'll share this with you so you could take a look at that and maybe give us comments back on what you see. Next slide. So successful business trends post-COVID, when we looked at the commercial business districts throughout Suffolk County, we kind of listed them as we inventoried them. So you can see on the left is Greenport, and on the right is Northport. And these were the businesses that we observed as we did these inventories. Okay, then you can take that and compare it and make some tables. So the table on the right, the top table, shows by volume the typical, the CBDs in Suffolk County and what peaks and what doesn't. And you can see that experience-based and food and beverages has the highest peak in the types of storefronts that are successful in commercial business districts. And then when we look down at Port Jefferson for that breakdown, you can see again that we do have a large percentage of food and beverage. Escape room, float space, those types of things, a gym. Okay, so that's an entertainment that you experience. Okay, next slide. So we were looking for, what we're trying to do here is connect the owners of vacant storefronts with successful businesses throughout Suffolk County. So we did the inventory. So now we have an inventory in our data sheet that Parker can go through and show you all the information that we can provide in that data sheet. If somebody is looking for a vacant space, the idea is that they could click on a vacant space or they could search the data and find the parameters that they're looking for their use. Vice versa, if I have a vacant space and I'm looking to try and bring in somebody who, is around the various villages, who opens up stores in the commercial business districts, why not tweak them to see if they'd be interested in coming into my vacant space? So we're trying to make the connections. We're not trying to make a deal. We're just trying to make the connections with our empirical data. So this is what we found. And you can see that 7-Eleven, for example, has got 5 locations out of 12 commercial business districts. So they're a chain, right? Ace Hardware had 3 locations. Chase Bank is located in the village of Port Jefferson, we found out. CVS Pharmacy's got 10 locations throughout Suffolk County. One of them's in Port Jefferson. But there are other uses like Goldberg's Famous Bagels. They're not here in Port Jefferson, yet every survey we do, we want a bagel store. So now we know that Goldberg's is in 3 out of 12 commercial business districts throughout Suffolk County that we looked at, probably in others that we didn't look at, but certainly if they could be marketed to come to the village if I was looking to fill my space. And et cetera, you could go right down the line and see the types of businesses, and this is just an example of the businesses that we found that were repetitive through Suffolk County that might be worth a phone call if I was trying to fill my space. Okay. So let me then So that's really, in a nutshell, what we found, but really it's in the data. It's always in the data. So let me bring up, or let Parker talk a little bit about the spreadsheet that it's his baby. He's out there every day filling in the space. So, Parker, if you want to bring that up and just walk people around and show the different columns and the type of information. And then Dan can talk about the business analyst tool. You can digest a little bit, and we'll talk a little bit about the 2030 comprehensive plan. Okay. You could take the microphone and talk from there, Parker, if you want.
Oh, go ahead. See where
This one doesn't work.
Yes. So there's really not much to say about what we can see besides maybe I'll just go across the top and explain what everything means so that once you get your hands on the data, you can understand what's going on. So we have the parcel ID, district, section, block, and lot, which are all just basically, if you were to put this into a GIS, it would attach to those parcels and shape files that are associated with those numbers. Same with the municipality, is all in Port Jefferson, zip code Port Jefferson, and then we have the address for every single storefront within our C2 and C1 districts. This first half of it's all C1 zoned property. We have their acreage and their land use. The land use code was what? It's the Suffolk County land use codes, right?
Yeah, Suffolk County.
We have their vacancy status, which if I scroll down a little bit, you'll see they come in various colors, green being non-vacant, the orange color being vacant storefronts, and then E would be empty lots, which are also vacant. The building occupancy, as the name states, is just the current business taking place in that storefront. And as you can see here in this reddish color, sites under speculation, most of them are vacant, which would be, up and coming businesses that have applications at the ready going through the system, hopefully to be developing soon. There was some additional things here at the end, like previous notable occupancies. So basically in the past, if something was vacant, you could see what in the previous iterations of that lot, what was available. Like for instance, the Gap building. And then for vacancies, this is a request from other people who had viewed this document to see how long those properties were vacant for approximately, through whatever means.
It's not vacant, but there's no building occupancy unless a previous note.
That is just a parking lot. Yeah. Yes.
This might be a question for you, since you're sort of the architect of this. I know you're including commercial districts, but why aren't we including, for example, things that could add, like, you have two hospitals here. You have ton of medical space that's not in the commercial district. Like you have banks and everything. Why aren't we, those are things that if you want to put, if you want the commercial space to grow, those are two big areas that you could potentially pull off of for areas like restaurants, shopping.
Well, the comprehensive plan was pretty clear on where our commercial business districts should be. And what we're trying to do is make them more successful. We weren't looking to expand the commercial districts, but that's a good point that you're mentioning. And we could list them in the inventories because they are vacant, commercially used spaces. Is that what you're saying?
Right, the commercial
Right.
use spaces, and they could, for example, the hospital, you have a ton of people there that, just for example, go to lunch, food places, DoorDash to the hospital from places downtown,
Mhm.
so they are customers to the space that to make it successful.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think they're inherently linked if you, because you're looking to make them successful, but to make them successful, you have to have a customer base, if you want someone to come into your commercial district and open I'm just gonna say a restaurant, but, you want to be able to say, listen, in this geographic area, I have this many businesses, I have this many.
To your point, Dan is going to talk about what the business analyst tool gives us in terms of data.
Okay.
And it shows us some of the things that you're speaking about now. Okay. So, Parker, are you done going through that? Is that
I was going to get to the C2 district,
okay?
which has a lot more vacancies and a lot more So as you can see here, it's all a draft because it's a transformative document. It's always changing with the vacancies that are going in and out. This one was last updated. It's been a little while since I've been out there, but from my observations, I haven't seen any big changes. I'll scroll here to C2, and you'll start to see a lot more orange. As you know, there's around 46% or so of the vacancies. So we got a lot of them with that red there, as you can see, like the Baxter development. Chase Bank, where the hell is that? I don't remember where. Oh, that's 60 North. It's on the corner. That does count as in the district. That's right.
That's across from Mather Hospital.
Yes.
have a non-conforming sign in front of the building.
That still hasn't been moved.
That was in front of the ZBA, that's why he said
Can this
that.
document be a living document
Yes.
as
It was
as
denied.
spaces transform from, Apple Auto Service to
That's exactly what we're saying. It is a living document. So this is a working draft. It'll always be in draft form because as soon as we show you something, you're gonna tell us, oh, that space filled or that business flipped to a different business, and we're a day behind that. But we're always gonna be out there checking this to keep this as current as we possibly can.
we use, we're on the corner of North Country and 112, went from a fish market or restaurant
Right.
to now apartments with a bank in the corner. So this might at one time have said restaurant and now it's converted to apartments.
Right. And had the restaurant existed and converted when we were doing this, there might have been a note in the side saying prior use was a restaurant, now a mixed-use building. Okay, let me, Parker, you done? Okay, keep going.
So you see the big block here for the 1501 development, or the overlook, right? That's what it's called. So yeah, all those properties were previously, a village pub, a piano store, Noah's Tires, or the Earth Dog location. And you have their vacancy lifespan, and some of them have been vacant for well over a decade now. So this will help pinpoint those vacancies and hopefully fill them, obviously with a lot of parking. This line right here, you see? So it's the section, block, and lot. So the block difference is what it is. So so down below here, I'll show you. Yes, so you'd be able to say if you have the tax maps here, right next to the document, you'd be able to go. This section is a part of this block, and then you have the section 12 and section 21 maps here below as well for ease of reference that you can use with the tax map number codes.
So what we'd like to do, and Dan's gonna come up and talk a little bit, so let me just slip this in. What we'd like to do is share this with you, with the board. You guys can give us your comments. Again, it's a working document, so you give us comments. We may make the changes in the comments, but we'll continuously be bringing this back to the forefront for people to see the progress of this. Hopefully, we'll start to show that we have less and less and less vacant spaces. Absolutely. If there's a column you'd like us to add, if, from your areas of expertise, if you happen to be out there marketing buildings and and we've missed something that is necessary, like square footage of the space or information that you see, or if you say, oh, by the way, that use is no longer there or that use is no longer vacant. So anything, any comment that you feel is relevant, pass along to us. Okay, let me.
Can I make a suggestion now that I'm seeing?
Sure.
Before you begin, is there a way to make this interactive where, Parker, slide down to the tax map? Is there a way to make it so that when you click, for example, color code the whole map, and then you can see theoretically where your vacancies are concentrated?
We envision to do that, but that's another presentation on GIS that we're trying to bring into the village. Right, so if we had GIS capability, which we're looking to bring to the Board of Trustees, a proposal to bring GIS into the village, we would be able to do that and create interactive products like that.
6 months ago or something?
Did we do a presentation on bringing GIS to the village?
I mentioned it, so.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, go on.
So let me bring Dan up, and you can talk about some of that stuff.
You did. You talked about the interactive map that was being created.
For zoning, the
Oh,
zoning
this
map?
is zoning, I'm
I think that's our zoning map. So we have a, right. We have a product that we're working on with the county. It's kind of stalled at the moment, but it's a live interactive zoning map, so that if we're driving around the village and we see there's a change of zone or change of use, it's actually our land use map as well, 2 different maps. But if we see those types of things, we would fill out a form, send it to the county, and they would update our map. That was in the day when we didn't have GIS, but we envision that we will have GIS, and then we'll be doing that ourselves. And we'll create an interactive where if you're out on the road and you see a change of use or something, you let us know if we don't already have that mapped. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of static maps that do similar things, but we just don't have them interactive or shareable at this time. So Dan, why don't you come up before they come up with another question?
Hello. I guess I'll try to address that. But yeah, so I mean, you want me to start with the business analyst or? Okay. So I don't know if we have it available. Business analyst. It's okay if not, but business analyst was kind of the starting place. So and you guys might remember at the time we presented it to the Board of Trustees, a original presentation with the using Esri's business analyst tool. So that's the company who makes ArcGIS Pro, ArcGIS Online, making those products. They have a tool that basically takes together U.S. Census data, the economic census, and some of Esri's own demographic and economic data. And it basically produces basically a snapshot of both the current economic status and the demographic status of a certain geographic area, and also projects it for a 4 or 5 year period. So we did this back in, I think, March when I first started. Well, yeah, when we first, and this was back we started with the county. So we did we had them analyze, one was just the C1 district, so everything included downtown, but not around it. And for the C2, we took a little bit of a different approach. We tried doing everything in the C2, but then also some of the adjacent neighborhoods, so some of the RM zoning that's there, some of the PO, just to kind of see how those areas interplay with each other. I will say we've got comments from the Board of Trustees that they would like us to the C1 as well, downtown, so we could also expand, see how some of the residential areas nearby interact with the downtown neighborhood. But ultimately, we were able to get a snapshot of both these areas and get some kind of interesting feedback from it. So I think this is what you kind of get when you first run the tool. It gives you kind of a snapshot of the economy, household income, general population trends, and then some of the things that people are currently spending, lifetime expenditures. I think the biggest poll way, I'm not sure which, is this Uptown or is this C2, I'm sorry. So this is South Village by the train station. And I think we ended up finding out being a little bit more residential in character, a little bit of a younger population, which may reflect the increase of the rentals being there, and some of the the changing landscape of the neighborhood. But I will say, again, this also does include some of the RM and the PO, so there's some influences there. Whereas downtown, when we in the Harborfront, we analyzed that, it was a bit of an older crowd, but also a lot, I'm trying to think, smaller family sizes. It was more of a transient population as opposed to uptown where there's actually more longer term and larger sized families. But in terms of the economic stuff, it's not here, but we have basically produced a bunch of spreadsheets, and those spreadsheets show you data from the current demand of 2024 and the expected demand of 2029 through both these districts. And as you would imagine, food, restaurants. Yeah, that's Esri's terminology. So they kind of define different groups. Like it's almost like different young professional groups. Some of them they call them the golden age group. It's like the older population. It's kind of Esri's own way of just kind of adding some insights. Yeah. Yes.
There they said the median income is 81,000, but to your left, you're saying the median income is 112.
Yeah. So one's based on the right side is based on the population group, and then the left's overall.
Left's overall.
Yes. So that's
Taking the average, because when you get to the urban chic, they've now jumped 45,000.
Of all the cohorts. Aggregate of the
yes. Yes.
All right.
Yeah. You're.
Yeah, without a doubt.
44 years old, I'm right,
One of the golden years. But anyhow, it's financial astrology.
Dead, don't worry.
No, it's okay. It's all good. No. There you go.
Listen, Oscar,
What else you got?
What for this?
What else you got?
Oh. I'll let him go. So basically that's what we got, right, for both these districts. And we got the projected demands, and we can easily share that data with you all so you can see it. And it was just kind of more of like a baseline, right? It's like, this is what the current data based on the census, the economic census, this is what it's showing is what we currently have a demand for and what's the expected demand and where the expected growth areas are. I mean, there were interesting points in there about like, you expect the typical restaurant and bar that's in most villages on Long Island, but it also emphasized groceries such as like having, stuff for the actual local population and daily essentials, and that was in both of the districts. So was an interesting point that came out of this. And also professional office, personal service industries, those both seem to be growing demands throughout both these districts. So it was more of like a baseline factor. And I think we want to.
The data that shows what's missing in the village?
Oh, yeah. So there's the retail market potential, which is like potential for different things. We have a lot of different spreadsheets that they provided us with these.
Yeah.
So Dan, just talk a little bit about how the business analyst tool looks at all the businesses in the area and then determines our nucleus, what's missing in there.
Yeah, so it's hard to it's hard to describe.
I don't tell how it does it, just tells what it does.
This is actually a percentage of who bought fine jewelry, watches, what they've consumed, what has been the consumer desires for the past year.
Yes.
For this specific.
For this yeah.
So eventually, if you go through this data, it will show you the potential market that's underserved by the village.
Yeah, so it shows you like the current, so for example, it'll show you the current demand they use NIAC codes, which are like industry codes to kind of analyze what businesses you have, and what the demand might be for those industries. And eventually it tells you, here's the current demands for like, for example, grocery goods, for restaurants, for et cetera. And then here's your expected growth, demands back in 2029. So like where the demand would increase the most essentially, and where would consumers projected at least want to invest their money into.
Are you gonna give us all this data?
Yeah. And we also have because we have a we have a separate presentation we gave to the Board of Trustees about this, and we can probably share that with you as well. It kind of explains a little bit about the data and what our conclusions were from it. So it might be a little easier to digest. Yeah, yeah. So. Okay. Yeah, I'm good. Yeah.
Okay, good, thank you. Yes. So just in closing, we have a vacant storefront study and a select commercial business district survey, which we're making available to you. We'll also make available to you the business analyst tool data, so you can look at that. There's a lot of information that we've put together. So I want to go to our next presentation, and we can always go back if you have questions or if you. Whoop.
So this is the select commercial business district survey.
Yeah, I'm seeing, it's your comparatives, correct?
Yeah.
Can I keep going down?
Sure.
Patchogue, 200 total businesses in Patchogue, and 29% of them being food and beverage, totaling, for 57 different food and beverage businesses found in the commercial business districts. 29% of them.
So then we're to interpret that Patchogue actually has a lower percentage of food and beverage locations than Port Jefferson does? 'Cause I
No,
thought
they
saw-
have a lower percentage. They have more,
Higher
beverage,
volume.
but in comparatively, they are
Right,
a
the
lower
percentage, yeah, they're at
percentage.
29%, whereas I think we're at, what, 34%?
Yes.
Doesn't look that good. You just don't like a lot of the rest of the comparative. I like it.
Exactly.
If the rest of the board wanna take 5, then why don't we keep going with questions?
Do you have, what is our total number of restaurants and beverage, food and beverage in Port Jefferson? Do we know that number?
Let me take a look. So I have here 40 food and beverage locations.
Okay, and then scroll up again. So yeah, Patchogue has twice as many,
Yeah.
because their commercial district is that much larger. So it's just we have a higher percentage, but they have, that's, when everybody does the comparisons, that's one of the keys.
They also have much better access to, as far as the street being wider, just better
Sidewalks, correct.
better access to parking locations.
I should mention that all of this data was interpreted into a report, which the presentation and all this was based off of, so we'll also provide that for you to view as well.
So the next presentation I'd like to give you is a presentation on the 2030 Comprehensive Plan update and the audit on that. So the title is the 2030 Comprehensive Plan Update Audit. We started that in August. Actually, we started it earlier than August, but we reported it first in August. And Parker's going to bring that up. And the main architect of this PowerPoint presentation was our intern, Ava Cooper. Right? Ava is no longer working with us. She is back in school. We reached out to her to see if she could make tonight, just to show up and say hi, but she was not available. But, okay, so we took a look at the comprehensive plan. Next slide. So you may recall the comprehensive plan. It's a 166-page document. It's got 300 action items in it. It's broken into 15 chapters. The first comprehensive plan for the village was in 1965, and it's undergone multiple revisions, and the most recent revision was adopted in 2014, and that was the 2030 comprehensive plan. So we're about 5 years away from the horizon, if you will, of that 2030 comprehensive plan. The plan aimed, lots of goals in the plan, but essentially goal number one was to maintain the village character. This was based on a survey of residents. That's the next slide, actually. No. But anyway, that was based on a survey of residents, and maintaining the village character was one of the main themes of the responses. And you can go through the blocks on your own time, but I think that, let's see, creating a diverse housing opportunities and types was a goal of the comprehensive plan. I think that we are well on our way to addressing that goal. But these were some of the major goals that were taken out of the plan. Next slide. So staff investigated the implementation of the plan. We just want to tell you that the plan, as I mentioned, had 15 chapters. These are the chapters. Chapters 1 through 3 were overview chapters. Chapter 4 is the C1 district. Chapter 5 is the South Village. And if you may recall, I did a presentation on the audit for the C2 district. So I won't go into detail on that. But you can see these are the various chapters of the document. We reviewed each item, each action item, and then we went through the code to see if it was put in the code. We went through everything that we could find to see if those action items were implemented. Next slide. And we have a spreadsheet. Similar, it's just your good old Excel spreadsheet. Ava worked on this, and we listed all 300 of the action items, and then we went through the document page by page, and we went through our code, we went through everything to determine whether these were adopted. So chapter 1, next slide. Chapter 1 was context, and it introduced the plan. It included the data on the survey that was submitted to Port Jefferson residents. Let's see, we got 575 responses back, which is an 18% response rate for the survey, which is pretty good. Preservation of the Harborfront Commercial District and character of quality was one of the main responses. You can see village-wide parking issues and open space were issues that were mentioned. The South Village housing and walkability, so we're working on that. That was mentioned. Midtown uses, that's the RO zone, and connectivity between the two commercial business districts was mentioned all the way back then, and waterfront revitalization was mentioned back then. I just want to mention as a pause here that you may be aware that the village is seeking a grant for $10 million from the Department of State to do a downtown revitalization initiative. With that monies, if we're the successful applicant for that, with those monies, we would prepare a strategic investment plan, which would help to implement a lot of the vision of the comprehensive plan, and also, at this point, tweak some of the visions of the comprehensive plan to make them more palatable, more doable in this time frame. So we are looking at a grant application. I just wanted to mention that because a lot of the stuff that we're talking about here can be embellished and added to and even altered as we go through looking at a new comprehensive plan for the village. Next slide. So some of the demographic information I thought was interesting. We put this in the slide. We were looking at the business analyst tool before, but in 2025, 33% of our housing units is in rental. You compare that to 2014, which was 27% of the housing stock was in rental. So we have improved our diversity of housing stock, and our rental housing stock has increased. The population in 2023, 36%, roughly a little bit more than 36%, was 55 or older. Looking back, in 2014, we had 32% was 55 or older, so we're aging. The overall population is aging.
What an interesting comparison that we have increased in rentals, but yet our demographic has aged.
Well-
Wouldn't that speak to who some of the occupants of these apartments are?
You could infer that some are downsizing.
Yeah.
The aging population is downsizing. Yes, you could infer that. And we also have a higher education percentage of the people in our village 25 or over than across Suffolk County. I'm sorry, by comparison to 2014, which was 53% had higher education. So we're getting smarter as well. Next slide. That's debatable, right? So, chapter 3, and again, chapter 1, 2, and 3 were overview chapters. Chapter 3 went back to the comprehensive plan and looked at the build-out. In the comprehensive plan, it anticipated build-out. So, in 2014, they found that space permitted 430 apartment units in the Harborfront Commercial Business District and 250 units in the South Village. There's also a potential at the time in 2014 for 44,000 square feet of new commercial space in both the Harborfront Commercial District and the South Village. So what have we done since 2014? We've constructed 208 apartment units in the Harborfront Commercial Business District and 155 units in the South Village. We have a lot more to go. We do have ongoing projects in the South Village, mixed-use style apartments, and that will allow for more units as well as more retail space on the ground floor. Next slide. So chapter 5, I indicated that we did do a presentation to you before on the overview of the C2 South Village Commercial Business District. Of all the chapters in the comprehensive plan, the C2 district and the C1 district had the most action items implemented in the comprehensive plan. So some of the achievements, since 2014, the C2, the C2R, and the C2PO districts to permit the medium density type uses in the downtowns was added to the code. We added Station Street as part of the Station Crossings Conifer project on Main Street. We also implemented payment in lieu of parking. So in 2014, that didn't exist. It does exist now. We also didn't do some things that were highly recommended. We didn't incorporate space for enforcement presence into the train station area. We do know that going along with some of the blight up there is some insecurity, and there has always been a call to locate the police and or code or somebody up there for a presence. That has not been done yet for various reasons. We wanted to encourage developers to provide rental and ownership housing units to attract more age and income diverse residential population. In the C2 district, we really haven't been successful in getting home ownership in some of the new construction projects. They've all been luxury rental to affordable rental, but we do have other projects outside the district that might be bringing in market rate ownership housing. And we did not define, as is defined in the comprehensive plan, we did not define minor public benefits in our zoning code. So when we have applicants come before us and let's say in the C2 district they want to do a fourth floor and they're required to do a major public benefit, we still need to distinguish what a major public benefit is from a minor public benefit. And that was not codified, and we're trying to get that recognized. Next slide, please. So just take a little pause. When you look at all 308 original action items, 47.4% of those are incomplete. And that is the area of least progress you can see on the slide is chapters 8, 14, and 15. And we need to go back and take a greater focus on the PO district. And again, I bring up the fact that we are now looking at hoping to get a grant that will help tie in the two commercial business districts through the RO and the PO district, the RO district. We have 32.8% of the 308 action items in some form of progress, looking at amendments, changing some of the parking requirements. We're looking at stormwater management issues. We're looking at parking. We're looking at a lot of things that are in progress. And then 19.8% of these action items are actually completed. And I point to the C1, the C2 change of coding in our village ordinance. So I could, in the next slide, start to go through the priority items by chapter, but I think that if we give this to you, you could look at that, and you can take a quick glance now. I don't want I don't want to keep going section by section on all these things that need to be done. But they're, they are listed in some of the things that are still priority action items. Next slide. And they continue. All sorts of recommendations that need to be deliberated and discussed with the various boards, and that would include the zoning board, it's gonna include the planning board, all the committees. We're gonna start to talk about these things because we wanna see if it is still warranted to make some of these changes to our code. Next slide. And these are the various other chapters and some of the more priority action items that came out of that. So we see that there, out of all the action items listed, there's really still a large overlap in the calls for additional parking in the village, transportation options in the village, better sidewalks and pedestrian improvements, and all these things still must be addressed, and there's still open items. Happy to say that this administration has been working hard at a lot of these items, and a lot of the progress that's being made, not complete, but a lot of the progress that's being made has been made in the last couple of years. Next slide. So we have had some really incredible successes. We have required rental permits for any residential structure in the village. Prior to the code, that wasn't a thing. But now any rental is required to get a permit. We did expand the parking committee and their responsibilities to include advising the village trustees on parking and circulation, bicycle and pedestrian issues. We have a very active parking committee, and they do almost quarterly give recommendations to the board on the parking management system and various different things that they've seen. So I'm happy to be part of that. We have been working on improving pedestrian crossings with crosswalk markings and at various locations, so a lot of that has been done. Every application that comes before the planning board, we look to improve pedestrian movement. The latest project that we've been working heavily on, we might be adding additional crosswalks to the streets and sidewalks. And then we did change the C2 zoning code, and we do permit mixed commercial and residential uses. And we do have incentive zoning in the C2 code, which does allow a fourth floor if you being the applicant, can provide a substantial or a major public benefit. So what are the next steps? Next slide. So we do know that important strides have been made, and we do know that there's a lot more to be done. We do know that we need to create an implementation plan. One of the things when I was with the county and the 2014 plan was referred to the county for review, the County Planning Commission for review, I was happy to review it. And one of the things I noticed that our comprehensive plan didn't have was an implementation plan. So we are now looking at a strategic investment plan as part of a grant application that hopefully we will win. Otherwise, we'll have to go back to the drawing board and work on our comprehensive plan and come up with a strategic implementation plan. Let's see. So, when you do have a comprehensive plan, it is almost routine to review your plan every 5 years or so because things change. You get something like a COVID pandemic, which changes the demand for office, changes the demand for retail. So now you might want to go back to your comprehensive plan and see how much zoning you have relative to office and retail. You might want to change that or not. But there are changes that happen. So every 5 years, you want to go back and look at your plan. If we are going to do an implementation plan or as required in our DRI, our Downtown Reinvestment Initiative, revitalization initiative, it does require that you have some sort of overseeing board to lead the implementation and track the process. We're thinking that the planning board or a beefed up planning board with additional citizen members might be a good place to start for a steering committee of some sort. And then, we want to utilize and prioritize the overlapping actions to stress urgency. So we do know that parking in the village, while it is a real issue in the Harborfront Commercial Business District, it is a looming issue in the C1 South Village issue. And if we get the additional 150, 200, 300 units uptown, I'm sorry, in the South Village, we're going to need more parking. So we're looking at that every application that comes in. How can we start to look at ways to get more parking? So that's really it in a nutshell. I think I'm going the wrong direction. Right. So we did want to look at a implementation schedule for this, but I think that we're probably a year out, maybe 9 months out if we wanted to start this, but this is a draft, and really don't look at this on the dates or anything like that, because this has just been pulling along. Now we have this DRI grant, so that might fold into our timeline. But we were kind of looking at trying to get this wrapped up by May and bring the update to the board, but that timeline is slipping. So, once we get rolling on this thing, we don't want it to languish forever. I mean, the comprehensive plan for 2030, I started with visioning. Maybe Alexia will know. I started that when I was with the village as a trustee way back in 2000. So it took 14 years. I think that's the record for a comprehensive plan. When I was in Southampton, it took them 7 years to come up with their comprehensive plan. So we want to amend our comprehensive plan, and we don't want it to languish forever. So we're trying to do it in a 9-month time frame. And that's that.
How much of Southampton's comprehensive plan has been implemented already? Any idea?
No, that's a good question, because when we did it at Southampton, it did have an implementation plan, and it did identify the boards and the committees and the funding streams and things like that, which we hope to have in our own plan. But I didn't go back and look at that. So I'll report that back to you. Okay. If my colleagues in Southampton will still talk to me, I will give them a call and find out. So that's really all I have, unless you have questions. We're here, we have the DRI staff and trustees will be at the farmer's market this Sunday and next Sunday. We were at the farmer's market last Sunday. We're there with a table, and we have explanatory boards to talk about what the downtown redevelopment initiative will include. It also has boards for you to put notes on and your comments on those boards. So if you get the chance, swing by Sunday between 9 and 2, check us out, and write down some comments and stick them to our board. And we're going to assimilate all those comments, and that comes part of our action items that we look at for the DRI. If you're interested and you want to come up, I have some stuff from our DRI right here. Everything you saw today, we're going to email you, and we'll also email you some of the backup from the business analyst software. Well, the internet wasn't as, but so Antonio asked just how did we poll the members back in the day? It was a survey. It was a paper survey that mailed out to the residents. So mailed it out to the roughly 7,500, 8,000 residents that we have in the village, and we got a 15% return, a good return rate on it.
Do we know when it comes time to renew your village parking pass or validation? We're doing that all online, at least for the last few years, right? But I'm sure there's a few people who still comment.
Right.
Ask as you submit updated parking. Answer a few questions. Sure.
So that'll give you the information in regards to what the desires of the residents are as they apply for their parking permits.
Working on their mind,
We
yes.
also are doing some research in regards to gathering data in regards to the people who come into the village recreationally. So we will have some geodata that's going to be possibly gathered. We're looking into some companies that will help us gather geodata for people who come into the village, generalization of their demographic and where they go, how long they spend, and where, how our commercial districts are utilized and by whom and by for how long. And that will help us also compare with what the residents want to how things get used, and how we can better implement a plan for filling the vacated retail spaces or the vacated spaces that we have, and work toward that. The village is trying to gather as much information as it can.
That's the foot traffic software. Right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff going on. Technology has revolutionized the type of way that we can get data for the village, and we're trying to really look into that. So we have the software that Alexia just mentioned. We have our business analyst tool. We have various data that we're doing. We're going to try and bring GIS in so we can take all that data and spatially represent it so you can see pictures of where things are concentrated, et cetera, et cetera. So we're at the cusp of doing some real interesting stuff. So any comments that you have, whether it's relevant now or in the future, let us have them. We'll start to catalog those comments and try and work with them. So I thank you very much for your time. So the Board of Trustees continued their public hearing on the application of Beechwood, which is a application for 79 condominium units on the old Maryhaven site. The applicant has made an application. The department reviewed it. I prepared a memo and gave it to the planning board. The planning board reviewed the memo. They prepared a memo and gave it to the Board of Trustees. Board of Trustees absorbed that. There was some public comments that came in. The Board of Trustees asked the applicant to continue the hearing, which the applicant agreed to. The applicant came back last night and addressed some of the comments that the Board of Trustees had given the applicant and some of the comments there. So the public hearing was closed, okay? The application was set for the decision calendar with no date. So there's still information. The department has not seen any of the new submissions, so we need a chance to look at that and advise internally what our thoughts are on that. So there's a little bit more internal review of the applicant's latest submission, and when the Board of Trustees feels it's ready, it will come back to the Board of Trustees for a decision.
On that note, we're closing the hearing tonight. Thank you for everyone.